Hi, it's Paulette. Welcome to my channel. I'm doing this a little bit differently since I'm in a different environment. But today is June 5th, 2026. It's a 3-day, which means divine wholeness, completeness, and perfection. God's divinely guided completeness and perfection and wholeness. And it's the video number 31, which I have to tell you, the Hebrew name for God is El. So, like I've explained in other videos, that the Hebrews gave numbers to letters. So El is 31. And 31 is also Proverbs 31, the virtuous woman. It's ironically the last chapter in the Old Testament. I find that extremely or not in the last chapter of the Old Testament. It's the last chapter of Proverbs. That was a little slip because I have some other information to explain to you about the last chapter of the Old Testament. Oh, God's working with me. He is miraculous. So, first of all, I want to say I repent for any misleading information I provided in my previous videos. God was guiding me. He was leading me to Him through everything that I've been doing, like I have stated in some past videos. So forgive me for saying anything that is not biblically correct. Alright, so I want to get that out there. But the Proverbs 31, the virtuous woman, the final chapter, I just found it, me being a woman. Final chapter. I just thought that was funny. But she represents the wife of a noble character. She describes a wise, industrious, and God-fearing. She's a God-fearing woman, or wife. And actually, even though it's talking about a woman, we're all the same. So if you're a male, it's people. But in this scenario, they're talking about a woman whose duties extend beyond household duties. She uses resources to help poor and needy, so she's compassionate, strong and dignified, a woman of valor, wise and devoted. Her ultimate foundation is her reverence for God, speaks with wisdom and leads with kindness. Yeah, that's very important in life, to speak from wisdom and lead with kindness. I've experienced so much kindness lately. My most recent kindness, which kind of really blew my mind. Kudos to the parents of this child, but it was a boy, and he was probably maybe 10, 11 years old, somewhere around there. He said, "Let me hold the door for you." And I'm like, that is so sweet of you. But then, being a child, he says, "You can get the next door." I just thought that was hilarious. Because he was walking out and I was going in. So he told me to get the next door. That was just too funny. Oh, love that child. And then it's also meant to represent the fullness of wisdom. It's really not a to-do list. It's just kind of, how you should live your life, kind of basically. And it's grace over perfection. Key. Oh, God, thank you for that breeze. I appreciate it. I'm in my van, so, if you've been following along, I don't have a home right now. Someone corrected me. I'm not homeless. I'm houseless. that just really brought a smile to my face, because my home is with God. And yeah, I don't have a house. It's just, it's perspective, and your words really do matter, and how you speak. Like God, it was Jesus, that you can kill with your tongue. You really can. You can write. That's spelling, casting spells. You can write it. You can say it. There's no taking back your spoken word. Once it's out, it's out. So, yeah. So, and then also 31, it's Psalm 31. It's a prayer of distress mixed with strong trust in God. Into your hands I commit my spirit, is what Jesus said on the cross in verse 5 of Psalm 31. I didn't read Psalm 31. I'm not saying I'm a biblical scholar. I'm extremely far from it, because I've only been kind of digging into it. I've gone through the Bible twice now. The first time I did it in a week, and I just did it random. However, they kind of popped up to me. I knew there was 66 books in the Bible. So as they were popping up from this YouTube channel, I forget what it was called, but I was just going to the next one, and it took me a week. And after I did that, I don't know how far in between, but then I felt guided to do it in order, from Genesis all the way to Revelation, in that exact order. I wanted to hear it in that order, just to know I did it in that order. And then you can just kind of randomly go through the Bible. Like, I listened to the Psalms, which is, I think it's like a 5-hour video to go through all the Psalms that are in the Bible. But I did that. I'm so proud of myself, I have to say. I'm so sorry. But I have to say I am proud of myself. God has really come through for me, and I did that because I wanted to. No one pushed me. But let's get back to the number 31. So Genesis 31 is Jacob, which I said I feel a connection to. I was talking about Jacob and Esau in a previous video, and how Jacob, they were twins, and Esau came out first, and Jacob was clutching the heel of his brother Esau on his way out when he was being delivered. So so in Genesis 31, Jacob finally fleeing the house, and plus my maiden name links back to Jacob. But Jacob finally fleeing the household of his deceptive father-in-law, Laban. And so Jacob married, forget their names. I think it was Rebecca or Rachel. Yeah, I forget their names, but that's in a previous video too. But this is more so just to talk about the Genesis 31, and it's to trigger you really into doing your own research, because that's how you learn, by doing your own research. You get bits and pieces, and you're like, oh, that's interesting, and then you go dig. That's what you do. I'm planting seeds, okay? So anyway, Laban was his deceptive father-in-law. He's the one that made him work for 20 years, and I guess he changed his wages. I really don't know the whole story. I've got bits and pieces. Like I said, I'm far from a biblical scholar, and it just amazes me how people know the Bible so deeply. But yeah, So so God instructed Jacob to leave and go to the promised land, and that God would protect him. So Jacob took his 2 wives and he fled. And that actually marked a major turning point in the biblical narrative, because he was supposed to start a war. Well, actually, nah, that's that's Moses. But anyway, it was I'm trying to think that, hold on a second. Yeah, I forgot. But anyway, so Numbers 31, God told Moses to make war with the Midianites, because they led Israel to, I was getting confused with Genesis 31 and Numbers 31. So, my confusion in Genesis 31 is related to Numbers 31. So, they were the ones that, and Israel is God's people. But the Midianites were leading God's people into adultery, teaching, like, to worship, like, pagan gods, which is what the Greek people, and I always thought, and this is why I said, forgive me for misleading you, you know how they say all roads lead to Rome? I thought all roads lead to God, but in a sense, it does, because I can say it led me to God. I guess I could say that, because I went into Hinduism, and I thought that was so mind-blowing. They had all these gods and goddesses, and I'm like, wow. And then to hear about the Greek and how they worship the sun and things like that, and I'm like, this is crazy. I mean, I was just trying to understand it. Not that I was into it. I was just trying to understand it. And it didn't make sense to me. And, this is what God did for me. Because I like putting puzzle pieces together. Like I was saying to someone recently, good thing I like mysteries and surprises. Those are definitely 2 things that I really, really love. You're probably hearing a truck because I'm kind of near to a major road. So, he's noisy, so sorry if you got earbuds in. But, yeah, so it all roads kind of did lead me to Rome, per se. But it was to God. And, He worked in me. It's amazing how He worked in me. He gave me the idea to research the numbers, and for some reason they were all kind of relating to the Bible, which kind of disturbed me because I wasn't really into the Bible, and it just kind of had a bad, I don't know, can't describe how I felt, but I just felt like we were really deceived about the Bible, and so it put a bad taste in my mouth. There you go, taste in my mouth for the Bible. But it led me to the Bible. So Numbers 31, that teaches the severe consequences of leading others to sin. This is why I repented in the beginning. To the sin of the importance of obeying God's commands, and that always disturbed me too. I'm like, why do we gotta obey? But that we gotta remember, this is Satan's world. He's ruling this, so he's putting all these ideas that we are our own person and we get to do whatever we want, and blah blah blah. But God created us. So it's obeying your father like a parent, like a good parent. A child obeying their parent. That's how you need to look at it. So the importance of obeying God's command, even when they are difficult, and the necessity of purity, outlining God's righteous judgment against evil and underscoring the sacredness of his laws. So I wanted to, and it also noted how God chose Jacob over Esau, because in the Hebrew, or back in the day, maybe it's Hebrew, I don't really know, but anyway, back in the day, back in this time frame that the Bible's in, the firstborn was the one that basically inherited everything. So Esau was the firstborn, even though they were twins. He was the first out. So he, and I think I brought this up in another video. Unfortunately, I don't know, but this would make this video really long if I dug into all that. But this is to plant the seed. He traded his land rights to his brother Jacob. Jacob was at home cooking, and Esau was out laboring, and he came back and he was ravished. He was just, when you get so hungry and you just I'll take the first thing, whatever. But so Jacob just kind of used that to his advantage because he was so hungry. And Jacob said to Esau, if you give me your birthright. And Esau was so hungry, he says, whatever. He didn't think that meant anything, really. And so Jacob gave him the food. Jacob gave Esau the food. And then, so Jacob inherited all that. All of what Esau was supposed to receive. So I found that to be interesting. But, so that's what I want to say about that. But I also want to talk about my days, my past couple of days. So, yesterday was my birthday. I turned a whopping 61. Yeah. And I was going to do research into that. I forget. But that's not important right now. But I wanted to talk about how God was really speaking to me. So actually, when I was going back to my notes here, I wrote down from yesterday, I felt guided to just start writing. And I wrote here, I said, I'm sitting here in my van not knowing what's going on because, like I said, I'm houseless, jobless, but I'm feeling content, and it's really disturbing my one daughter. She had a meltdown yesterday, and my sense of humor doesn't go off very well with her. But my sense of humor, God gave it to me, I believe, to get me through tough times. But anyway, so I was sitting here, I said, I don't know what to do. I said, I need a confirmation. And a video popped up. Because, like I said, I spend a lot of time on YouTube. So a video popped up. And it says, about April 6th. So I'm like, April 6th? So I was like, kind of intrigued me. Like I said, I'm curious. I'm curious by nature. I'm like a little kitty. So she didn't know what it meant. And so when I was looking at it, and I couldn't really make heads or tails out of, because she didn't know what it meant. But she said, she said God told her it was April 6th, and it had some meaning to her. And it's about Jesus coming back. And I almost feel like, because everybody's like talking about the rapture and things like that. Like I said, I don't know much about the Bible. But I got into that probably maybe a year or so ago. And I got heartbroken because I really wanted out of here. I wanted God to take me. Not that I was into the Bible, but I wanted God to take me because I am a believer. I just wasn't like doing the works. But so yeah. So I found it. So April is actually the 4th month, and then the 6th. So I thought, that's my birthday in reverse, June 4th. Yeah, so I didn't really know. It just kind of like, yeah. Well, actually, when I asked him what was going on, I need to hear from him. He said, "Wait." I heard "wait," not like audibly, but like in my head, like someone speaking in my head, a thought that comes from somewhere else. It just said "wait." And that's when I popped up the video that said April 6th. Still didn't make sense. I'm thinking it's not related, but now when I was reading through this, I'm like, it was related. You just don't, you gotta put the puzzle pieces together. So, on my birthday yesterday, I was sitting at the park, and some people, there was one car that parked next to me. They left. And then another car parked next to me. It was the second car. And it was a red Audi. And I automatically thought back to a dream I had. And I tracked down when I had that dream. It was September 20th of 2025. Oh, here's the sirens going off. That means something. This is important. This is important, okay? You got to pay attention to everything going on around you. This is important. Everybody thinks things are coincidence and not meaningful, but look what I'm talking about. This is important because I really feel it's important. I really, honestly do. Don't know why, but I really feel it is. Oh, it's majorly important. Oh my gosh. More. Oh my gosh. God, you're wonderful. If you think I'm a freak for thinking that, okay. Wait till it comes to you. Because, yeah. I used to think people were freaks like that too. But, so, in my dream, I had, I was like, I'll try to be quick. So I was like, just going through, I think it was like a Walmart or some super center or something like that. And I'm just walking through, and I heard some guy like whimpering or doing something, making some noise like he was in distress. And so this is like what I was saying, the compassion and stuff. That's all me all over it. I love helping people. So, I'm just a shopper. He was just a shopper. But I'm like, let me see if I can help this guy. So I go over there and ask him if I can help him. He was trying to pick up some towels. So, in the long run, for some reason, we decide we're going. I was to go somewhere with him. Even though I had a vehicle, I was driving his vehicle, and it was a red Audi. And I was explaining this dream to my one daughter one day after it happened, because it was just, dreams are crazy. So in my dream, I'm like gonna go through a drive-through, and but the drive-through was like on a little slope. I'm telling you, it's crazy. It was on a little slope of a building, like a hangover, and I was driving on it. That was the drive-through lane. Well, because it's angled, it's sloping down, the car slipped. But for some reason, the car stayed up there, but I was dangling from the car, and I yelled for help. And somebody flew in, probably an angel, I don't know, maybe God, Jesus, I don't know. Somebody flew in and put me back in the car. But when I was telling my daughter that I was holding on to the car, and she's like, I said it was a dream. Anything's possible in dreams. So, yeah, I was hanging on to that. So, and then I went to the window, and I was ordering plants, and he wanted 3. This is why I think it's just crazy. He wanted 3. The woman gave me 4. I said, I'm sorry, I only wanted 3. So this guy who was it was his Audi, he goes in to turn the key to give me the refund. And so I felt bad about the incident with his car. And I said, hey, by the way, I want to tell you. And so when I was in the midst of telling him the story about what happened with his car, because it was his car, they said, surprise, you passed the test. And I'm like, and I was just so baffled. I'm like, test? What? like what test? You know? It didn't make any sense. And so then after that, he told me I got the job. I'm like, I never applied for a job, but I got all excited. And in this dream, I had a husband, and my husband didn't want me to accept the job, and I was really excited about it for some reason, not even knowing what the heck the job was. But I didn't even know what the job was. And so then, I was trying to get on the computer to accept the job, and it kept glitching. I couldn't accept it. And then I woke up, and it was 11:11. I think I kind of mentioned this in another video, but I don't know how much in detail I did. But I found that to be interesting. So when the guy drove up, I was actually reading the book of Malachi. And that is the last book. See, this all ties in. God's so he's a master at this. But you got to be paying attention to put all these puzzle pieces together, or you just think you're just blindly going through life. So so it's the last book of Malachi. So, not really knowing the Bible, I was like, okay, well, what's the book of Malachi? So Malachi is God's promise that one day he'll send a messenger and personally confront evil, restore his people, and bring his healing justice. Isn't that ironic? Because everybody's talking about some rapture coming with all this, because the Bible talks about wars, rumors of wars, peace, when there is no peace. It's just, I don't follow the news. But, I don't follow the news because it's all negative, and I don't need that. I know God's in control. I don't need to know that stuff. But I do need to know the season, and we are definitely in that season from what I'm seeing. So actually there was 400 years from Malachi to when Jesus came. So, So the time he parked was 10:37 a.m. So Hebrews 10:37. God promises one. Um, uh, oh, God promises. Oh, I can't read my writing. Promises certain to be fulfilled. Oh, I wish I could search it on my phone, but I'm using my phone as a video recording device. But you can research Hebrews 10:37. But God makes a promise, and it's to be fulfilled. So I'm like doing all this research. Why does guys in the park? So Hebrews 11:11 was Sarah's faith. Sarah was an old woman, and she gave birth to John the Baptist. And I forget what her husband's name is, but anyway, so she wanted to have a baby, and she was past bearing child age. I forget how old she was, but she was old. But God promised He would give her a child. And because she considered Him faithful, and she believed in Him, that He would make this promise come true. And then in John 11:11, Jesus speaks of Lazarus. Now, Lazarus was a friend of Jesus. And Jesus was away, and his Lazarus' two sisters actually first sent a note saying that Lazarus was sick. And Jesus decided not to go because He was actually using this to bring about the previous prophecies that He had. So Jesus speaks about Lazarus, and He says to His disciples, He says, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I am going there to wake him up, basically raise him from the dead after 4 days. 4 days. I just think these numbers, the 400, 4, yeah. So yeah. And then Deuteronomy 11:11 describes the promised land. He says, but the land you are crossing the Jordan to take possession of is a land of mountains and valleys that drinks rain from heaven. So mountains and valleys, everybody's got ups and downs. But you need to drink the rains from heaven. So you need to drink the rains of God. You need to drink His words, His living word.